Hey, you guys. I just had to pop in here because Holy Spirit just made something make sense for me. And if you follow me, you know today is the anniversary of when my late husband Matthew collapsed in this very kitchen on the floor of a cardiac arrest. And then he was trapped in his own body for 5 years and then passed away in 2019. This is all relevant to what I'm about to tell you guys. But I told you today I thought it was going to be a lot of me popping in spontaneously because it's the anniversary and I just know he's wooing me and he's comforting me. I'm okay. I don't want anybody to be like, oh my gosh, it's been 11 years. I mean, 6 since he's died and 11 since the day he got sick and had that cardiac arrest and acquired a brain injury that left him incapacitated with the exception of being able to blink for communication. And you'll read about it when the book comes out. But I had to pop on here because I saw something yesterday. And this is why it's so... Sorry, guys, I hear him. This is why it's so important to trust him to make things make sense when he's ready, because he knows when we're ready, when we can handle it, okay? So today is 11 years, and a lot has happened to me since my husband's death, even that has blessed me, but also left me in some waiting rooms again. But God is saying, Ashley, if you trusted me up to then, can you trust me that your story is still being written? Your pages are still turning. And yesterday I was driving. God talks to me a lot from the car seat of my driver seat in my car. That has to do with when my husband was sick and I spent a lot of time in hospitals and in cars. But I was driving, and on a stadium where I live, there was this huge marquee, and I even wrote it down because he said, this is going to make sense soon. I hear you. And I'm hearing the Holy Spirit say, like when Jesus said, you don't understand now, but someday you will. That is what full circle means, you guys. So if you're getting full circle, he's just trying to tell you, if you're alive, you have to just have a posture that he is still revealing those things that come full circle. And that's understanding, wisdom, promises, purpose, all of it. It all has to line up because he's perfect, okay? So yesterday when I was driving on the marquee of this stadium, it said our police department of our city. It said the name of that, which obviously I'm not going to reveal. But it said this particular police department. It was a huge ad. And it said, now hiring dispatchers will be fully staffed. And it had the number and applied. And you guys, what you don't know, and you'll read about this in my book, but in July 5th back in 2015, and I knew he was going to show up today, you guys, to give me a lot of content for you guys to be inspired from my journey and my story. But just behind me here, you'll see the countertop. My husband did collapse. Well, when I called 911, they were understaffed. And they weren't able to answer. The phone was busy, so there weren't enough people answering the phones at that time. Okay, this is what I came to find out later of why the phone line was busy. So you'll read about it in my book. I'm not going to lie. It was one of the hardest sections of my book to write because it brought back a lot of trauma that I wasn't completely healed from then. I am definitely more now, and almost to a point where it's just me able to share my testimony, which is what God will do. He'll take away the sting of your pain, but leave you with enough to be able to share a testimony. That's how good he is. Because guys, I can tell you, I'm not the same woman I was even yesterday that I was today. So he's always working. So that ad said on the stadium, our police department in our city now hiring dispatchers. It was a number, and the Holy Spirit said that's going to mean something to you. And so today, being the anniversary, he said, I'm going to make this make sense. So that day, and bear with me because it's still emotional, I spent years struggling with God, asking him, why weren't there enough people answering phones that day? Because the reason he was without help for so long is because, and I'm not blaming anybody, this actually is a word to say that I trust what happened was supposed to happen. This is how powerful this word is, okay? Oh, glory to him.
But I, in my humanness, struggled because that day I called 911. It was busy and then I called it from another phone. And this was while my husband was on the floor, completely unconscious from a cardiac arrest, which a cardiac arrest, you guys, means it's not like a heart attack. He was out. His heart was done. It was stopped. His heart had stopped in his chest. That's what a cardiac arrest is. Your heart, it's not like a heart attack where you might still have the heart beating. And let me tell you, the trauma of what that looked like, I don't even want to talk about it. It was horrific. But my 6'5" husband, 220 pounds, was on the floor, turning different colors from blue to white to gray. And I kept calling 911 from two phones. I had a cell phone, a landline. Then I set off my house alarm. Then I went out to my car, because when CPR, you have to get 911 on the phone first, or the CPR is meaningless. You have to get them on. That's how they train you. So I was trained in CPR by no coincidence, right? 2 weeks before my husband collapsed, and you'll read about this, I was trained in CPR. You can't make that up. So I ran outside screaming on a Sunday morning, like today, July 5th, Sunday day. Sunday is today. It's also July 5th. This is all full circle. He's giving me revelation. I ran outside screaming. I said, neighbors, please, can you keep calling 911? Even they, once they were trying to call it, they came back to my house because I had to go back and perform CPR on my husband. So I made sure somebody else was calling 911 because it was there was just me and my husband. I had no one else there to go call 911. So when I couldn't get through, it was busy, I went out to the street, which is the correct thing to do. You got to get somebody on the phone calling 911. So either you call someone and say, hey, call 911, and have them give your address. I'm just giving you some good advice. Or you run outside and you knock on a neighbor's door and you say, can you call 911 for me while I perform CPR, okay? Because the CPR will mean nothing if you don't have somebody bringing an ambulance on the way. So that being said, I went back and I started performing CPR for close to 10 to 15 minutes. And finally, somebody got through. And later I found out that it was understaffed. I spent years in anger at God, asking why. If that one little factor, because my husband being without oxygen, although the doctors told me you saved his life, because he did end up coming back to life in the ambulance, and they said it was to do partially with me doing CPR on him for 15 minutes. And you guys, you'll read about it. It's just mind-blowing. It was only God. It was no glory to me. It was a truly supernatural experience. But I struggled with him because I said, if that one little factor was different, if you had just made sure 911 was dispatched that day, there would have been an ambulance there, and he wouldn't have had that severe of a brain injury, and this and this and this. And I kept, for years, I struggled with God, because if only this were different, if only that. But God was saying to me, Ashley, do you trust me with the if-onlys? Can you trust me with the if-onlys? And so that was part of my healing process, is him taking me through his sickness, then his death, and then 5 years after that, where I experienced, guys, so many blessings that I can tell you I couldn't have changed anything that God allowed in my life to happen if those other 5 years following his death hadn't occurred. Because one day you'll read about all the blessings that happened to me that showed me God didn't forget about me. But then when my life fell apart again, I went back to that wound. I said, well, I don't trust you again, God. You allowed it again, something to happen again. But he's saying, can you trust me with the if-onlys? Because now I'll make sure that promise is fully staffed with everything I spoke to you. So when I saw on the stadium marquee, 911 dispatchers, we are hiring. So basically it was saying, so we can be fully staffed, we are hiring. God said to me, that's going to make sense tomorrow. And today is the anniversary. That's why he chose to wait to tell me when and why that would make sense. And that's what Jesus was saying when he said, someday you will understand. You have to hold on to your someday you will understand. I'm 11 years out from one of the things that was the most impactful wound that left on my life as a widow. God, why? Why didn't you have 911 fully staffed? And I hear him saying right now, because this is the appointed time for when it's all going to make sense. These years to come, the continuing of the unfolding and the turning of the pages of your life, Ashley. Can you trust me that I am now fully staffing the dispatch of your promise? I hear you. And he's saying that to you today. And he's using me. Don't go back and waver in your faith because you struggle with the if-onlys, God. Say, God, I know that you're in the process of staffing the dispatch on the promises you've spoken to me. It's just an appointed time of when you make it make sense. When, like Jesus says, someday you will understand. Our some days are still on the way.